Welcome to the second week of Advent and my Unpacking Christmas series, and I've got my second candle lit here, you can see, and I'm going to be talking today about the saints that mostly appear in this second week. It kind of depends on when Advent falls, but there are three saints that I want to talk about today, or rather two saints and and a devil, but it's all part of the complex. The first one is going to be Saint Barbara, or Santa Barbara, whose feast day is December 4th, and mostly I want to concentrate on St. Nicholas, whose feast day is December 6th, and then in between is December 5th, which is the eve of St. Nicholas, and in Germanic countries, Germany and Austria in particular, it's known as Krampusnacht. It's the day when Krampus, this horned devil, appears and takes away the naughty children, so that Saint Nicholas on December 6th can give presents to the ones who have not been naughty. So let's get into all of that. So let's start off with Saint Barbara, Santa Barbara. She's one of the many early saints who may or may not have existed. But she became very important in both Eastern and Western traditions, and still is. And I'll just be very brief about her, because I want to spend most of my time talking about St. Nicholas, Santa Claus. She, in the hagiographies, she is tentatively placed in the 3rd century, and she may have been living in Asia Minor or in Egypt. It's not entirely clear. Sort of in that general Middle Eastern, North African matrix. North Africa was a very important part of early Christian development, as was Asia Minor, and St. Nicholas came from Asia Minor, what is now Turkey. Very important theologians from these places. The basic story of St. Barbara is that she had a father who was a very powerful non-Christian, who in fact didn't like Christians at all, and Barbara was kept locked up all of her life to protect her, protect her from the evils of the world. But somehow, it's not clear how, she converted to Christianity. And when her father found out about it, he had her tortured and ultimately condemned to death, and he beheaded her himself. And it's said that on the way home from beheading her, he was struck by lightning and completely turned to ashes. So St. Barbara is the patron saint of protection against lightning, and also the patron saint of munitions workers, people who guard armories and where there are explosives. And frequently her image is put on the doorway or inside the armory or the munitions dump as protection against explosions and mishaps of some sort. She's also celebrated, particularly in Greece and Turkey, and in Arab states as well, with particular foods, and I'll show you them here. There's a particular wheat porridge that's very popular, made with both wheat and fruits, seasonal fruits. So it's a sweet porridge, kind of like rice pudding in a way, but with wheat instead of rice. And then these donut kind of things that are supposed to resemble cannonballs, so that, you know, like munitions workers will pile them up like they would pile up cannonballs, and quite delicious. So that's St. Barbara. Now let's turn to St. Nicholas. Nicholas is much more prominent in the Christmas season, and he, unlike St. Barbara may or may not have existed, or her legends may be a compilation of different people. St. Nicholas was a real bishop of the church. He really existed. He probably didn't do all of the things that people say about him, but he did enough that he became importantly connected with Christmas. And one of the things that he was famous for was giving gifts. But historically, December 6th was the day of Christmas gift giving, not Christmas Day itself. Although, of course, there's the Magi bringing gifts, but that also means that in many, many traditions, the gifts are given on Epiphany, January 6th, when the Magi are celebrated. The Christmas Day itself, historically, was not particularly associated with gift giving. That's a pretty modern thing. St. Nicholas Day was associated with gift giving because St. Nicholas himself was famous for gift giving. And I'll tell you what is perhaps the most famous legend about him associated with Christmas. It's said that in his town there was a man who had 3 daughters, and he did not have enough money for a dowry for each of them, and so they were essentially condemned to be unmarried all of their lives. But when they came of legal age, secretly at night, St. Nicholas threw a bag of gold into their house, in turn, like so that they were of different ages. When they became eligible for marriage, one at a time, he would secretly throw enough money into the house in gold coins so that they would have a dowry to be able to be married. And that's why at Christmas, one of our treats are these chocolate coins covered in gold paper to resemble gold coins to celebrate St. Nicholas. Now, it's also said, probably apocryphal, that he, instead of throwing the gold through the window, which is like pretty obvious, that in one legend he throws the gold down the chimney, and the gold ends up in the socks that are hanging to dry on the chimney mantelpiece. Hence, Christmas stockings and gifts and gold coins. Obviously, now we really are in the area of the apocryphal, but and whether or not even Nicholas threw gold into the windows of young girls is we don't really know. But that's the association of Nicholas and gift giving and chocolate gold. So St. Nicholas, being a bishop, had bishop's robes that he wore, and in early iconography he's often depicted as wearing red robes trimmed with ermine fur, that's white, which of course gives us the Santa Claus suit, although the depictions vary quite a bit, but that's the general, if you like, the origin point of the red suit trimmed with white fur. And he's also amalgamated with an English elf, I guess, or spirit of the season, Father Christmas. And Father Christmas in the 19th century was generally depicted as a jolly, rotund fellow, sometimes in a green robe, sometimes in a red one. In Dickens' Christmas Carol, for example, the ghost of Christmas Present is a kind of depiction of Father Christmas, and he's got a green robe on. But with the prevalence eventually of Santa Claus having a red suit, then Father Christmas now usually, always has a red suit trimmed with white fur. So Father Christmas and Santa Claus have kind of merged together as one entity, and various things have been added. And most of it comes from the 19th century. It's one of my hobby horses, that just about everything we do associated with a lot of customs, including Christmas, evolved in the 19th century. And certainly Santa Claus did. Sinterklaas was most popular as a developed character in the 19th century. And the sleigh and reindeer and all of that are also 19th century. They ultimately come from the poem Night Before Christmas, which was originally published anonymously and has in it the reindeer of Dasher and all of that, and playing on an old Scandinavian idea of St. Nicholas riding a reindeer. Like, you can't imagine him riding a reindeer in New York, but you can imagine him riding a reindeer in the northern parts of Norway and Sweden. So originally he was depicted on a reindeer, and then it became a sleigh being pulled by reindeer, and on and on and on. Eventually you get Rudolph and all of that. Also, interestingly, in the North European Germanic countries, not just the German states and Austria, but Belgium, Holland, and so forth, Santa Claus, or Sinterklaas, St. Nicholas, was associated with a fellow called Black Peter, or Black Pete, Zwarte Piet. And this is it's a problem in the modern world because he's depicted as black, and and it's basically black and white. Like Sinterklaas is white and Black Pete is black, and Santa Claus is the good guy. He brings presents and joy and drinks and food and festivity. And Black Pete is the opposite. He punishes the bad children, the ones who are naughty all year. So when Santa Claus is checking his list twice, seeing who's naughty and nice, well, in these Germanic countries, it's not, Santa Claus is coming to the good children, and Black Pete is coming to the bad ones, which does not sit very well in the modern political climate, and for obvious reasons. And so there's a lot of controversy about it now. Well, originally, and still in some parts of the Germanic world, on the eve of St. Nicholas, there is this figure called Krampus, and the eve of St. Nicholas is called Krampusnacht, Krampus night. And his, Krampus is a very fierce, demonic kind of character who is getting ready to punish all the kids who've been bad throughout the year, in preparation for St. Nicholas coming the next day and rewarding all the good children. Well, it's not as popular as it used to be, but it's still current in the folklore of both Holland and Germany, as well as Austria, in small parts. So those are the three festivals that I want to focus on now. So it's the 4th is Santa Barbara, the 5th is Krampus night, and the 6th is St. Nicholas. Obviously, the tradition of the 6th moved to Christmas Day itself at some point, probably again in the 19th century. That prior to that, Christmas was not really a very important festival. It was a church festival of sorts, but not a very important secular holiday. But St. Nicholas was, for its gift giving and feasting and so forth. And that all then moved into Christmas. Now the next festival that's coming up, and which I will talk about more on Friday, is the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. Very complicated church dogma about the sinlessness of Mary, that she had to be sinless, according to Catholic dogma anyway, in order to be able to give birth to Jesus, who was the one person born without original sin. And we'll take that up on Friday and talk about how logic gets in the way of religious practice and religious traditions. And the Immaculate Conception is really important for a couple of reasons. For me, the most important is that Christmas does not really start in Argentina until the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. Until then, there's very little in the way of decoration. There's not much in the way of decoration afterwards, but the decorations go up on Immaculate Conception, and there's various feasts and parades and so forth on that day to mark the start of the Christmas season. So it's another way of unpacking Christmas. I happen to like it, partly because I'm from Argentina, but I like the flow from the Immaculate Conception onwards. So I'll see you on Friday, and we'll talk about Mary and all of the dogmas associated with it, and some more talk about food. But I'll do some cooking for next week. I'm particularly interested in getting my nougat recipes down, because I can't get any nougat here in Cambodia, and it's a really, really important part of the Christmas tradition in Argentina and in Italy, where I used to live, and where it's called torrone. And I really want some. So last year I didn't do a very good job. I've got some new recipes and I'll present them to you next time. Have a good week.